I'm going to deal with a very, very fascinating topic this morning. Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim Lefanav.
What page are we?
360.
360.
Yaakov sent angels in front of him. In front of him means he to follow. That would be the simple interpretation of the sentence. In front of him means he's sending angels to Esav, and Lefanov, before he arrives there, it's him to follow, to his brother Esav, Arza Seir, to the land of Seir, in the field of Edom. Yaakov is coming from Iraq. He's just been 20 years by Lovin. He's coming from Iraq. Iraq is northeast of Israel. So the road is to go west and south. Arza Seir is southeast of Israel. It's like around where Saudi Arabia is. It's below the Red Sea to the east. Below the Dead Sea to the east. It's just not on the road. It doesn't make any sense. This would be the map of Israel. This is where Esav is. Arza Seir is. He's coming all the way from here. He's just going over here, come down. Or coming a little bit down. But this is way out of the way. It's way out of the way. So it's very difficult to understand why is he meeting Esav in Seir? You hear the question? Why is he meeting him here? You're coming from Iraq, and you want to come to Jerusalem. Actually, he wants to come to Hebron. This would be saying, on the way from Iraq to Hebron, he should stop in Saudi Arabia. Well, one reason you could think is because Esav lives there. He wants to see Esav before he comes to Israel. Well, let me read you the sentence. Let's see which page it's on here, but you go to chapter 35, sentence 27. Okay. 35, sentence 7. Sentence. No, not 7. No, I'm sorry, not 7. Sentence 27. 35:27. And yet Jacob comes. This is the end of this visit, the end of this trek that the Torah ends up when he left Paddan Aram and he's going back to Israel. 2 years later, he comes to his father Yitzchak. Mamre Kirs Arbi Hebron. He's living in Hebron. So again, he's going from Iraq down to Hebron. And now let's go to the next chapter. It's even more compellingly difficult. Go to page 400. Sentence 6. Okay, he comes here. We got it. He comes to Hebron to see his father. He returns home. When he returns home, Esav takes his wives, Esav's wives, and Esav's sons, and his daughters, and all his other, servants and everything, and all his cattle, and all his things he's accumulated in the land of Canaan, and he goes and he leaves because of Yaakov Achiv, because of his brother Jacob, because they both had so much property. Sentence 7, there wasn't enough room for the land for both of them to be there. That means until now, where's Esav living? Exactly in Hebron. He was living in Hebron. And when Yaakov comes back 2 years later, he's still there, and it was actually very amicable. There just wasn't enough room for both of them. So what happened? Esav pulls up and leaves. Where should he have met Esav? In Hebron, that's where he's living, and with all his things there. That's where he's living. So not only is it out of the way, Esav is there. Okay. To put it another way, on the other hand, if you read the sentence over here, where is he going to? This is like Saudi Arabia. The first sentence, back to where we started. Yaakov sends to his brother Esav, Artsa Seir, the land of Seir. Seir is the name of Esav, Isair. That means he's enough connected to that place that was already called, it had his name to it. Not only that, Sidei Edom. And the county, or whatever the Sidei, there's the country and some smaller is called where Edom is. Edom is Esav. So here, the whole thing is so complicated. Not only the detour, his Esav is living there. And Esav doesn't move away from there till over 2 years later when Yaakov arrives. Until then, he's with all his wives, his children, and property. He has a huge holdings in Eretz Canaan. 2 years earlier, he's certainly still there in Canaan. He hasn't yet moved. He doesn't move till 2 years later. He already goes where? Yaakov detours to around Saudi Arabia. And at that time already, it's called Esav land and Edom land, which means that he has a real presence there also. So first of all, that itself doesn't make, he's there and his presence is here. He's already Seir. It's very difficult to do. But whatever it is, if Esav's there, he should have met him in Hebron. We'll answer all these questions. Okay, that's one question. Let's go further. So really, going to be really a fascinating insight, I think. Okay, let's go further. And he says to them, sentence 5 on 360, and he sends these angels, and he commands them, this is what you should say to my master, Esav, this is what your servant Jacob is saying. Im Lavan garti v'echaranato. I've been living with Lavan, and I've been there till now. It means he was 20 years by Lavan. And send them that message. So Rashi says, what is this message? Look at the room. Garti means I'm a stranger. Rashi 5. I didn't become a notable or a dignitary, but I'm just a stranger. So why should you hate me for the blessings of your father, who blessed me that I should be a lord to you? It hasn't been fulfilled to me. I hadn't been. He's trying to appease Esav. So he said, look, I got nothing. The problem with this is, he's telling Esav that Isaac's blessings haven't been fulfilled. So the Maral says, what kind of thought? He's shaming his father. He's saying something negative about it. You mean the father gave all it hasn't worked? That's an insult to his father. That's the Maral's question here. He says, I don't even most unbelievable difficulty in his answer. Okay, then he says, Rashi says another alternative is, Garti has stranger is a numerical value of 613, as if to say, I live with this evil lover, and I am righteous despite him. I didn't learn anything to this, and still none of the blessings came, right? Again, you shouldn't be. Why should you be jealous of me? What are you jealous of? My father's blessings, and here I've been righteous despite I'm living with love, and I got nothing too. What does that mean? He himself doesn't believe in the efficacy of the blessings? It doesn't make any sense. And not only that, even if he's trying to snow Esav, he can't be stupid enough not to realize Esav believes in it. Esav, when he heard his father gave the blessings, he gave a scream that thousands of years later we had to pay for that scream, that there was a decree against all the Jews. Every Jew should be destroyed, and Mordechai gave a scream. It means Esav really believed that something significant was taken. Certainly Esav believed that Yaakov believed it, so you can't say something stupid to somebody intelligent. That's the questions I'd like to deal with. I can tell you the answer to this is one that is basically the most important, literally the most important basis of all human relationships, and specifically here, in terms of the Jew-Gentile relationship, it has an enormous implication here. Jacob, the blessings were originally Esau's. Esau sold the birthright, and therefore the blessings belong to. Therefore, he sold the birthright, and therefore Isaac is giving the blessings to the one who has the birthright. In fact, when Esau tells Yitzchak that this is the second time he outsmarted me, Yaakov, and because he brought my birthright, then Yitzchak on the spot says, then the blessings belong to him. So there's no question it was illegal. The blessings belong to Jacob. Esau feels bad about that. The basis of all human relations, even if something is coming to me, but you feel uncomfortable in the fact that I now have what was once yours, I will not take it till I can make you feel comfortable. In all human relationships, there's always tensions, sibling tensions. That this is the kind of thing that happens very often. Money, that my father's nicer to this and fighting over the parents. That's almost all siblings have similar issues. At the end of the day, one child will feel, okay, maybe this, but I feel bad. The basis of all human relations, and husband, wife for sure. It's not that, listen, you said you do this, I do this, and this is our deal, and you said it. If a person feels uncomfortable, real sholem is not enforcing my right, but to figure out a way to make the other person comfortable with what I did, with what I've taken. It's a huge effort. He pays a fortune of money here, Yaakov, to give him later on all kinds of gifts of animals, a great deal of wealth here. Why? For one reason. He wanted him to feel comfortable with the blessings. What he's telling his brother is that, yes, I know they come to me, and my father gave me the blessing, but you understand, not my father, when he gave the blessing, or me, when I know I'm worthy, want the blessing to be taken by me until you are comfortable with it. The whole meeting here by Yaakov and Esau was to make sure Esau was comfortable. He needed Esau's comfort. That's getting along with people. Because if you enforce a right, then you create a separation. If you make the other person feel comfortable with what you have, then you remain connected to each other. Anytime you enforce what's yours, even though it's coming to you, you've broken what with the other person, which to some extent is the halacha ensconces that, and actually says that's even an obligation on the judges to do that. You go to a court. This is not only, I'm saying Yaakov's whole being is a man of truth, but even the Jewish court, which is supposed to be also justice, the judge is sitting there, he already knows who's right. In his mind, he's already figured out who's right. Before he decides who's right, he should try and get them to compromise. Because when you say one is right and one is wrong, you have created discord. Even though he knows he's right, he has an obligation to try and get them to agree to a compromise, because even though they both have lost, but they're both comforted with the fact that they walked away with something. The foundation of Judaism, even a Jewish court has this responsibility, is to keep people together and not to enforce my rights that by definition create a schism. The Torah is telling us here a fascinating thing. Yaakov knows it's coming to him, and not only that, he's saying your father's blessings also means your father also knew that it's not going to happen, and your father didn't want it to happen till I have buy-in from you. And I'm putting here an enormous amount of money to have buy-in from you. Now let's see where, in fact, give you an idea, but let's see that whether it's true in the text. As we know, the first meeting, actually, before Yaakov met Esau, on the night before, his angel came his angel came and waged a physical war with a wrestling match with Yaakov. That the Torah describes. So let's take a look at the sentence. And they actually dislodged his sciatic nerve. And then let's go page 371. But Yaakov had been victorious. He sustained a minor injury, and he's holding on to the angel, and the angel says to him in sentence 27 on 371, send me back. It's morning time. I have to go back to the heavens. He says, I'm not sending you unless you give me a blessing. Okay, what did he want? So this is what the angel says to him. What is your name? He says, Yaakov. Comes in sentence 29, the angel says, Yaakov will no longer be your name, but you're going to get an additional name, Yisrael. And you will be called Yisrael, which means you'll be a man of authority and power. Take a look at Rashi here. Sentence 29. No longer shall you be named. This is the fight, the whole night fight. No longer will be said that the brachos came to you through treachery and deceit. Now, but they came to you that your authority came and was open, and not only that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to announce it by calling you Yisrael, which means a man of authority. It wasn't an underhanded manipulation, but it's coming to you, and God will give you a blessing. And then the angel says, and I will be there, and I will concede to you with regard to them. The whole struggle that Yaakov wanted from Esau's angel is that he should concede the blessings belong to him. He wanted that he should have buy-in. Yes, you are the appropriate one. God has announced it, and I am announcing that I agree to what you've done. It's better for you to have them. Okay, that's when he meets the angel of Esau. The next morning, he actually has a confrontation with Esau. Let's look at the sentence there. Page 'Hilach a sentence, page 375, sentence 9. They had this meeting and they're hugging, biting, kissing. It's not exactly clear what they're doing there. And Esau says, I have more than I need. What's yours should belong to you, Rashi. Let what you have remain yours. Here, Esau conceded to Jacob with regard to the blessings. It's clear the whole confrontation here is only for one reason. For what reason? That Esau should concede that the blessings are his. Which means that, it's really what Jacob's telling him on a deeper level. He's telling him like this, that I'm not taking it. I need buy-in. Why do I need buy-in? Because at the end of the day, we have to have a working relationship. At the end of the day, what I'm going to try to do is something that you are going to have a share in. Maybe I'm in charge, but I want buy-in from you to give me the authority so that when I set up a system of justice or whatever it is, this is something that you are agreeing I should do, and therefore I am including you in my mission. If they split, listen, it was yours, you sold to me, it belongs to me, okay? You got the blessings, I'm out of here. In a sense, that's what you're telling him. When Jacob says, I don't want that. I'm not looking to sever, I'm looking to join with you, means I need that you should agree, and therefore, if you agree that it's really I'm the one, then there's buy-in from you, and to some level, we're working together. That was the whole message here. Jacob does not take something that's not coming to him. Even something that's coming to him, he doesn't want to enforce a right, because enforce a right creates a separation. He wants buy-in. And if you're arguing with your sister over an inheritance, you're arguing with your partner over this, and you want to go further, you can get our deal, and that's the end of the relationship. or you try it, even though you're right, get buy-in, and then you continue working together. That's the whole goal of the world, is that Yaakov should eventually have some influence on Esav, and that's only going to work if Esav buys into the fact that Yaakov should be making certain decisions and should have certain powers. Otherwise, if Yaakov has it, even though it's his, but Esav doesn't admit to that, there's a break. It's a fascinating message of how to work together with something is mine, and that's what he actually says. Your father wanted the same thing. How do you know his father wanted the same thing? Because when Esav said, Yitzchak thought that it was the first one was Esav. Now when he finds out the second person coming in is Esav, and Esav says, that brother of mine, he stole twice from me. He manipulated and took away the birthright from me. So then Yitzchak says right away, then all the blessings belong to him. Okay, that's not. What is he telling that to Esav for? Esav still wants a blessing. He's going to give Esav a blessing. Why does he have to tell him that? He should tell Jacob, by the way, you fooled me, but now that I know it belongs to you. Why is he telling? Because he's telling that to Esav, because he's telling Esav that they're Yaakov's, and I want you to know that, and I want you to feel comfortable with that. And the reason the blessings haven't happened yet, because there's not been a clear statement of Esav's buying in. And that's what Jacob is saying. My father wanted to buy in from you, and I'm saying it's proven from the fact that his father told him that they belong to Jacob. That's just fomenting a fight, because he wants buy-in. And I'm righteous, I'm entitled to it, but what I'm entitled to, we have to go further working together here. And for this, he spends an enormous amount of money. Enormous amount of money. Now, the question is, he has two places. Where should this meeting take place? Where would be the appropriate place to make a meeting of one person making concessions? So, after the Second World War, they go to a Yalta. You go to a neutral place, right? You go to a place that's totally neutral. After the First World War, I went to Brest-Litovsk, like something, I guess, in the middle over there. Here they go. Where is the message going to? Where is Yaakov want this to happen? Just to meet Esav, where would be the more likely place to meet Esav?
Hebron.
Canaan. Yeah, by Hebron. That's where he's living. I'm going to go there. How does Esav feel living in Hebron? We know Esav knows that Israel doesn't belong to him. Because in order to get the land of Israel, Rashi points out over there that you have to be willing to go down to slavery for 400 years. He says, I'm not doing that. And therefore, he abdicated and he knows it belongs to Jacob. And that's why right now he's living with his father. But he knows this is just a temporary place. When Jacob comes back, who's going to be here? He's going to go to Jacob. So therefore, Jacob is gone now, at this point, 34 years. 20 years at Lavan and 14 years. So in these 34 years, waiting for Jacob's return, he didn't want to start coming as a stranger. He started building a place that he would have some type of authority there. He made probably investments. He had people living there, and so much so, maybe even had a political position over there. Probably was. The place is named him. He probably is the king of the place. At the end of the parsha, we find out there was 8 generations of kings he had over there, and that means he's feeling pretty good there. He doesn't want to give up totally moving out of Israel, because what happens if Jacob screws up? Who's going to get Israel? Then it reverts back to him. In fact, even when he leaves, after Jacob comes, he doesn't go to Edom. You'll see Rashi. He just moves a little bit away, because he's staying close by to see whether Jacob's going to screw it up. I mean, Jacob's dealing in a whole realm that he may not be capable of dealing. If he messes up, either he sins or he messes up, it'll come back to Esau. So therefore, he already has a base of power, But otherwise, he can grab Israel too. And even when he comes back and there's not enough room, he doesn't move to where he really is. He's keeping an eye on that. And we know that there's a lot of tricky decisions over here that Yaakov actually jeopardized his whole relationship with all the nations that surrounded the city of Shechem, and he almost lost it, and it was a miracle, and he actually castigated his children for involving them in wars, and the Ramban brings there were 3 wars. It was major league miracles that allowed him not to mess up all the international relations. He would have been destroyed. So Esav knows, keeping an eye on that. Maybe Esav also knew that he messed up his relationship with his father-in-law. Whatever the reason, I actually have another explanation that makes a lot more insight in that. In other words, why did he escaped from his father-in-law? His wives already bought in, we want to leave. We want to leave. And when he runs away from his father-in-law, by escaping, his father-in-law comes to kill him. And God doesn't say, don't kill him. He's dead. And their brothers joined him over there because they're petrified of their grandfathers coming to kill them all. What is the reason why provoke an incident? The girls are on your side. God told him to come back. The angel said, go back. He went and told, before he didn't tell his wives we're going back. There's a whole discussion and everything else. I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago, that he got buy-in from his wives. Because his wives realized, because of Yaakov's wisdom, he was able to realize who Lavan was. He was a manipulator of them, an exploiter of them. He didn't care about them. He just took away their property. They felt as if they were shvuyas cherev, as if they were captives for ransom. So why do that? They're going to leave, and he's going to leave. The father's not going to stop him from leaving. He never claimed, just, I want to say goodbye. So leave like a mensch. Don't jeopardize yourself. Sounds like a very bad tactical move, right? And Esav understood in his mind, this is my man, he's going to screw up relations, international, I'm coming back. Let me tell you what the insight here in general, why did he do this? Why did he actually do this? It sounds pretty stupid to do this, right? Why is he antagonizing Lavan? He already has total allegiance of his wives. I'm going to tell you the most incredible insight, we know that from the Torah. He has buy-in from his wives, but there's somebody else that's valuable to him. Who's that? The children. He doesn't have any buy-in from the children. If they leave and the grandfather gives them a big hug and kiss goodbye, and everything's good, yes, the wives know who their father is. But the grandchildren, they could belong to Lavan. And he can't afford that there's an allegiance to Lavan. Lavan is a world class. He barely survived himself, and he's a world class. He'll be able to get them. How do I know this is true? The most unbelievable thing. It's a Rashi in the first chapter of Deuteronomy. It says like this. Moshe is giving the Jewish people criticism before he dies. So Rashi brings the Sifri. It's actually in the Talmud. Well, where do you get that? Well, you criticize people for sins, you wait 40 years, criticize them when they did it. What do you wait for? Why right before he dies? He says he learns out from Jacob. Jacob didn't criticize his sons like for the slaughtering of the city of this, whatever he criticized, selling Joseph. He only criticized him before he dies. You know what Rashi says? And he didn't criticize Reuven for moving the beds around, which is, why not? You know what Rashi says there? You're going to fall off your chair. Rashi says, we're talking about the greatest Jews, Shimon Levi. They would have joined, he was afraid if he criticized them earlier, they would have joined Esav. Esav's a very smart guy too. Esav understands that the kids are vulnerable. Okay, Jacob is greater than him, but there's nothing, if I get the kids, I win the war. Okay, I lost the battle with my brother, but if they become my nephews, they follow me, I have won. Rashi says that Jacob was afraid that if he criticized the chin, they would have joined Esav. You can imagine if they have a good relationship with their grandfather, or join the grandfather for sure. That's even a closer relationship. It made the whole relationship between Yaakov and Lavan and Yaakov and Esav very precarious. He's very concerned about who's going to own the grandchildren. Therefore, by the way, here also, after all this, Esav invites them all to come. Come, bring the children to me, bring them to... And actually, Yaakov answers them, they're too young. Which I think means they're just still vulnerable. They're still vulnerable. After the whole meeting and hugging and this, Esav invites them here, they're vulnerable. So there's a lot left of danger. He's not out of the woods yet, Yaakov. He bested Lavan and he bested Esav on a personal level, but unless he makes a break between the children and the he can lose the next generation. That's why he risked being killed, because he knows that he has nothing. If he goes friendly and they're still connected, the grandchildren connected, he could lose everything. And Esav sees that also, and Esav, he messes up. I want to be around, I'm going to be good. If he didn't even fight with him. Oh, you're here, you got too much? I'll move away, don't worry, Jake. And not that he moved to his place, he moved just far enough to keep an eye that the nephews will feel comfortable if the father messes up, the father over-criticizes them. He's lying in wait, Esav, there to get. Where does Esav feel strongest? Where does Esav feel strongest? Here, when he's living in Canaan by his father, he doesn't have a place, a country he has to move away from, or Edom, which he's for the last 34 years, he's gotten the base, he's a king, and he has, the country is called, and the place he lives is called, it's not called Dade County, it's called Esav County, Edom County. When you want a concession from a person with whole heart, do you go to the place where he feels strongest or weakest? He goes to Canaan. He wants Esav by it. How does Esav feel over there? He doesn't feel good. He's going to be moving out of here. He doesn't feel empowered. Now, when he gives up something to Yaakov, he's taking a piece of his kishkas and giving it away. But when he's sitting by as a king over there, okay, you have your thing. The whole confrontation has to come to the play out of strength, because Yaakov wants that Esav should, with a whole heart, concede that Yaakov is entitled to the brachas. The only place to make a concession, if you want a genuine concession, you want a person to feel good about himself, that he's not throwing everything away. He has a place. It becomes like a minor concession in compared. He's a king. He has a land here, and he's going to be here till Mashiach comes. This is his place. This became his place. He wants that Esav should concede that Yaakov has the best place to get a concession from anybody is when he's feeling good about himself. The whole message here is, and even though it didn't work because Esav preempted, it was coming towards him, and actually they met in right outside of the Jordan River, right close, nowhere near Esav, but Esav had come from there. He dealt with him as the king of the place. He did not negotiate with Esav as a brother. He negotiated with Esav as the king of Seir, because that's what he wanted to do, and he bows down to him, and he totally treats him with, I'm your slave, and I'm your servant, I'm your subject. He's treating as a king, because only a concession can only really be wholehearted when a person walks away with something. If the person doesn't feel good about himself, maybe you'll say the words, but you don't have a real concession. To work together with somebody means you have to give him something also. So you're giving him that I can't have it with this. I'm not going to do what I have without you. But more than that, you recognize and give him his place now. You're a king. I'm your subject. I'm giving you homage. I'm bringing you a huge gift. And that's why he could have met Esav in Israel, but he needs one thing. He needs a wholehearted concession, which he pays a huge amount of money. But more than that, he has to give him, Esav, the feeling that he's something to. So where's the best place to do that? In HaRav. He's going way out of his way. But the whole strategy, the whole purpose here is one thing. Esav has to be comfortable in Yaakov's role, which Yaakov owns and is entitled to, but that's not good enough. The man of truth doesn't want that. You have to learn how to work with people. And therefore, he's going to go to the place where it's the right thing to give him homage and to bow down to him. It says, by Moshe Rabbeinu, Mikan shecholken kavod l'malchus. You have to give respect to Pharaoh. You have to treat him. He had to treat him with respect. So there's a totally proper thing that Yaakov does even though if he would have been doing there, it would have been 100%. Now he's someplace else, but he's treating him as where he would have wanted the negotiations to be. And that's why he's making a huge detour, because he wants real negotiations is only when the person who's making the concession, he's sitting there, on his yacht, he's sitting there with his servants, he's sitting there where everybody is saying, King, I need this from you, it belongs to me, but I will not take it unless, take yours. He's sitting there, top of the world. It's a lot easier to make concessions when you're sitting on top of the world. This is the right interpret. I'm just saying the way Rashi's reading the story. And once you realize that it's all out of the way, which makes no sense, and unless we really understand, that's where he really wants to meet with him. The simpler place to meet with him, where he's spending at least as much time, is with his father. His wives are there. That's the reason he wasn't spending that much time there. His wives and kids were there. That was his second. That was his future. But in the present, he's here. But it's a future that he's building a future. He's a king over there already, and therefore that's where he wants to. It's a very interesting idea in trying to negotiate a truce. The best place is not to go to a neutral place, but a real truce, not just a ceasefire, but a real working together. You'll get the most concessions, more genuine concessions, if you go to where the other person you want the concession from, it's his base of power. Good Shabbos.